quietness of the House of Representatives chamber, the emptiness of the Speaker's chair, are not really indicative of what is really going on in this Capitol building. Because in an office back behind this House of Representatives chamber, there is another Speaker's chair behind his desk, where House Speaker Gus Mutscher has been meeting with friends, supporters, staff members, some persons who are neutral, and even some who would be considered opponents, and in a feverish effort to try to decide just what he should do in the wake of the indictment by the Travis County Grand Jury last week. Also in the Capitol building today are some of those who are running for the Speaker's job when there is a session of the legislature. We talked with one such candidate, Rayford Price, and with Representative Cordell Hull from Fort Worth.
Oh, I don't think there's any question that if we have a session, then he should vacate the chair completely.
But if not a session, you think he should stay there?
Well, in case of not a session, the only activities that go on would be the appointment of some interim committees and the routine administration of the House, signing vouchers and those things. And I think that in that case, he should at least withdraw himself.
Well, Ross, sir, I think the Speaker has taken a position that he would step down and appoint an interim Speaker. Now, I think that person should be someone, naturally, that is not closely allied with the so-called Mutscher camp or the team or whatever you want to call it. We're going to have someone whose posture is that they will take a free hand and have an individualistic house, and let's get on with our business and let the Speaker solve his problems on his own.
No one in this Capitol building has predicted that the Speaker will not step aside. In fact, most people predict that he will. And while, if that decision is announced, it's going to be made from the standpoint that it will be good for the state of Texas, it probably is going to be made on the basis of it's good for Speaker Mutscher. In fact, a source close to him indicates that his attorneys will be one of the prime considerations in making that decision to step down, because it would put him in a better position when he goes to trial if he has done so, according to the source. Another person who was indicted at the same time, but not in a charge directly related to Speaker Mutscher's, is John Osorio. He is the last of the four who were indicted to surrender to the sheriff's office. He did that today at the Travis County Courthouse, where after being booked in the jail, we talked with him. So while the criminal aspect of the Texas stock scandal goes on with grand juries in Houston and Dallas at work, the political side of it also goes on with numerous huddles and other conferences going on here in the Capitol building, all centered, of course, around the House of Representatives. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move in Austin.
I would like to see this great community take the lead and restore the confidence in our people. For those people that work day in and day out and night in and night out for our protection.
David Payton, the new executive director of the Tarrant County Community Action Agency, appeared before the Commissioner's Court this morning to propose that a study group be formed to take immediate steps to decentralize the distribution of food stamps. The matter has long been one of concern, with poor people forced to come downtown and wait, sometimes for extended periods, to get their food stamps from the lone distribution point in the old courthouse. Payton told the court the hardships were both excessive and unnecessary.
All we asking the county to do is to look into the possibility of decentralizing the food stamp program to the neighborhood level, whereas the neighborhood people can walk and get the food stamps. They don't have to worry about transportation. They don't have to worry about standing in the rain. They don't have to worry about standing out in the cold and long lines waiting to get food stamps.
The Payton plan called for delegates from the CAA, state and county welfare departments, city and county police, and from the poverty neighborhoods themselves. They would meet to arrive at a practical solution to the problem. The CAA had put itself on record as willing to provide space in its neighborhood centers for the distribution points. As it now stands, the possibility is quite low that the CAA centers will be used for the food stamp program. The county has been engaged in a joint effort with the state for some time. A facility has already been rented in Stop 6 and renovation is underway there. County and state officials tend to feel that one substation probably will be satisfactory. What they did request of Payton was that he report back on Friday of this week with specific figures regarding where Tarrant County poor people, the recipients of food stamps, live. Although the CAA plan will probably not be adopted by the county fathers, it is indicative of two very hopeful developments. First, of course, Tarrant County is moving in a definitive fashion to alleviate this long-standing hardship from the food stamp recipients. And secondly, the Tarrant County Community Action Agency is presenting a united front, board and staff alike, making specific proposals for the good of those it is created to serve, and making those proposals in a clear, strong voice. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Community Action Agency in Fort Worth.
Serge, quelle sorte de camp d'entraînement t'as connu jusqu'à date?
Jusqu'ici, ça a été un camp d'entraînement assez, comment il faut le dire, assez calme, pas trop, j'ai pas fait aucun miracle, puis disons que ça va pas trop en ma faveur.
Now, for example, out at the crusade here, we heard something that we've only heard in one other crusade, and that is that people would clap through some songs in rhythm, and then they would cheer. They had cheers going back and forth. Some groups were trying to out-cheer others, very much like a ball game. And that is something new. And it's this generation expressing itself, and perhaps we're going to have some more feeling back in our faith. And I think we've needed some feeling and enthusiasm in our Christian faith.
Do you think that that is a sincere thing? Would you call it a bad?
Anything to say to the boys between halves, and he said no. Didn't have to give them a pep talk. I would say that I'm a little more restrained in my preaching. I hope that I've learned a lot through travel and through study. But thirdly, I am striving now towards simplicity. As you get older, as you study more, and as you travel more, you have a tendency to be a little detached from how people talk and how they express themselves. And this was the key to the preaching of Jesus. He spoke in the language of the common people. The common people understood him. I want to always remain, in my presentation at least, simple.
Folks working awful hard.
I don't have any reaction at this time. It's just one of those things you have to do.
You had talked earlier that this whole insurance thing was a mistaken entry, you'd said in Dallas. Can you elaborate on that again?
Well, I think the indictment was a rubber stamp indictment based upon a letter from the insurance department, which they failed to follow through. It was quite apparent at the SEC hearing, if they had listened to the testimony, I think this indictment wouldn't have happened.
But what do you mean by that?
Well, if you will recall, Don Aiken testified the fact that he made an error, and I think he'll still testify to that fact.
Who made an error?
Don Aiken.
Suit was filed in the Federal District Clerk's office here in the Federal Building in Fort Worth today by two Dallas men, H.W.G. Bishop and C. Robert Young, owners of common stock of Olympic Life Insurance Company, against W.D. Haden II and the Sharpstown State Bank, both of Houston. The suit alleges that Haden entered into and employed a fraudulent scheme to purchase a majority of Olympic stock without paying a fair value. The suit asks that Haden be forced to pay more than $1.25 million. The plaintiffs say he has cost the company since he became board chairman, and further that the stock which caused Haden to become board chairman be canceled and voided. Dallas' Judi Hanna talked with one of the plaintiffs in the suit, H.W.G. Bishop, about Olympic's loss because of Haden's actions.
The loss that is set up by the Insurance Commission in the amount of mortgages that they disallowed is somewhat over $1,100,000. In addition, they've lost the interest on that money since the mortgages were made sometime last year, which probably adds up to somewhat over $1,200,000.
In this suit, you're not actually asking for any reimbursement for yourself, are you?
Mr. Young and I are asking for nothing personally. We're asking that Olympic, in effect, be reimbursed for the loss that it took, on those mortgages.
The defendants have 20 days from today to answer the charges set forth by Bishop and Young. Judi Hanna is in Dallas. This is Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Federal Building in Fort Worth.
Obviously concerned about what's going to happen to Dallas Love Field when the regional airport becomes a reality, Dallas City Councilmen today took the unprecedented step of holding their pre-council briefing here at Love Field. In that briefing, they heard that a study is now underway to determine what should become of Love Field in the future, and the primary concern of that study is money. The city is now in debt over Love Field, and that debt won't be paid off until the 1980s. When the airlines move to the Dallas-Fort Worth Regional Airport, as they are bound to do by contract, there will be no more big revenues from the airlines and from the many concessions in the Love Field terminal. Airport authorities point out that Love Field is a drawing card for companies that operate jet fleets and other aircraft fleets, and they say all the airports in Dallas County won't provide enough landing space for those general aviation fleets in the future. Moving downtown, councilmen were asked to approve issuance of revenue bonds for the proposed plaza and underground parking garage at the new City Hall site downtown. The cost of that garage is expected to be about $14 million. which is more money than the city now has voted. Voters approved money for that parking garage and plaza in the 1967 Crossroads bond election, but since then costs and salaries have escalated and the city needs more money to do it right. The city manager's office says the only way to do it is to issue revenue bonds, and they point out that the parking is needed desperately for the expanded convention center and for plain downtown parking. But they also point out that it's not connected with the City Hall design or the proposed new City Hall. Also downtown, councilmen were asked to approve a new sign ordinance. The new ordinance takes the place of a 6-month moratorium on signs in the downtown area, which just expired. The old ordinance drew fire because it was not being enforced, critics said. The new ordinance is tougher, stronger, and stricter on just about all counts.
I'll be 66 next January, so you can expect when you start getting older, your time's come that you're going to have to step out, and I feel like that I've been here long enough, and I think I've had a good record. I'd rather go out with a good record than overstay myself.
Chief Hendrix, what changes do you expect to make in the department?
Certainly not going to rest on our laurels. But we continue the same aggressive approach we've had. We hope to be, we're number one as far as the Southwest, we hope to be number one in the nation someday. And through the guidelines Chief Penn has set for us, we'll continue this.
Chief Penn, has the city manager said that he would appoint Chief Hendrix upon your recommendation?
Yes, he said that Chief Hendrix would be the acting fire chief and chief designate, which would, provided the council approves it, he'd be the chief on November the 24th.